Alright, so today we're going to start talking about limits involving infinity. So we're going to look at two kinds of limits involving infinity, and we're interested in determining what happens to the function as x approaches infinity, so as x gets bigger, in both the positive and the negative directions. And we're also kind of interested in studying the behavior of the function as it approaches infinity, both in positive and negative directions, as x approaches a given value. So example 1, we're going to investigate, the limit as x approaches infinity of f(x) and the limit as x approaches negative infinity of f(x) for the function of 1 over x. This one's kind of nice. So the easiest way to kind of see without a graph investigating wise is I'm just going to make a t-chart. So I'm going to make 10, 100, like I do every time, 10,000, and 100,000. Numbers here. So if I plug 10 in, I get 1/10, which is going to be 0.1. If I plug in 100, I get 0.01. If I plug in 1,000, I get 0.001, etc., etc., etc. So, seeing this, I can see that my limit as x approaches infinity of the function of 1 over x should be getting closer and closer and closer to 0 every time. That's what this side of that table tells me. Alright, going to the next one, I would have same kind of t-chart. I get x, I get 1 over x, and then I'm just going to plug in the negative values. Okay, yep. Alright, and likewise, if I plug in -10, I get negative 1/10, negative 100th, negative 1,000th, negative 10,000th. Whoa, that is not what I wanted to write. I wrote that backwards. Set 1,000th. And then finally, negative 100,000th. Alright, so even if we're going to negative infinity, we're still approaching 0. So x is approaching the left of the function 1 over x should also equal 0. Cool. And that kind of makes sense because graphically, if I think about it, I would have an asymptote at 0. And so I would be plugging in values that go to infinity. So way over here, they were like close to 0. But as I got closer and closer and closer over here, it would go up. And then that graph would look something like that. So what ends up happening is we end up having a horizontal asymptote at 0, which we'll talk about horizontal asymptotes more here in a second, but just thought I'd point that out. Nice. Example 2, similar. Example 2, I am much more graph-minded than anything else. So I am going to make a graph this time. Alright, so we should have an asymptote at -3 sitting over here. So I should be... Where is that going to cross the x-axis? 0? Yes. Alright. So that means that it's going to go down. Alright, so graphing this, I see that I end up having a horizontal asymptote as well on this one. And that would be at y equals 2, to be completely honest. And we'll talk literally about that in a second. So what happens is the limit of x goes to infinity. To the right, it's going to go and approach 2. And as the limit... Oops, I need to put my function. And limit as x goes to negative infinity of f of x also equals 2. Alright. So that's example 1 and example 2.